Welcome to Climate Curious Quickies, bite-sized nuggets of climate goodness from our TEDx experts in under 10 minutes.
In this week's Climate Curious, we're pondering, how do you ask for $6 billion for the climate and remain chill? To answer that is the fundraising aficionado who happens to be the president of Climate Lead, Jennifer Kitt. And trust us, if there's anyone who knows about new money coming into climate, it's this wonderful human. On why the climate movement doesn't need better ideas, it needs bigger bets, and how her and her organization are moving not just millions, but billions into accelerating climate solutions. Here's Jennifer, taken from a clip at our live episode at London Climate Action Week. Stay curious.
So at what point do you start to believe that these things are actually possible? Because you're talking about like really big sums of money that people are investing, donating, I don't know what the correct way of saying it, but giving to solve problems. And generally, it sounds like we're talking about problems that are like beyond solvability for the average person in day-to-day life. Where does your organization hit the point where you're like, oh, we can actually do this? Or do you ever hit that point, or does it always just feel like it's never going to happen?
I mean, I see it through the people who are doing the work, right? I will see the possibility when you invite many of the nonprofits who are working on ending the polluting tailpipe and moving to clean vehicles all around the world, or stopping deforestation in Indonesia or the Congo Basin or Brazil. When those organizations start to collaborate and brainstorm with each other, and you ask them questions like, well, what would it take to get all the way to an outcome? Or what would you need to get all the way there instead of just incremental change? That's when I start to have actual real hope. And I do think donors at all levels can be part of this. I mean, on some of the deforestation examples, some of what's happening is simple technical assistance to protect land rights for Native peoples so that they can protect it from threats. And these things are not expensive, especially in many of the developing world where your money can go extremely far, and there's huge opportunity and also a real scarcity of resource. So people at all levels can be part of these sorts of campaigns.
You just said something that I think is something I've heard you say before, and I think it is so, it's like the thing. Like if I had to put my finger on the thing that is transformative, is working with people to ask that question that is not bound by what can you do in 3 years? Yeah. What can you do with $1 million? But actually that like unbounded question. What has it been like to ask groups what has it been like to ask group that question, and what impact have you seen on just their thinking?
So I didn't start this work when I was 7, as you just told everyone. I've only been in it 7 years. And when I first entered, what I noticed was that because so little philanthropy and investing and impact investing was going into climate solutions, the amazing people who were creating those ideas, the solutions, were thinking in increments. What could we do with 500,000? What can we do with 100,000? What can we do with 1 million? Because that's how they were getting resourced. It was something less than 1% of all giving then. So what I have noticed is if you meet with them and they're collaborating with each other and you ask questions that are in full increments, if there's a reason for them to dream that big, they will begin to do it, right? If the possibility of enough resource for them to scale to meet the needs, to get to the outcomes we need is possible, they will begin to imagine it. And if you just help them by whiteboarding it, they will get there. And if we limit ourselves to what we think is possible to bring resources to, we will never find the abilities that we have to move quickly. So just the power of a question actually has been pretty transformative, I think. And of course, think about it from the donor perspective. If I have great wealth and I can give a great deal of money, one of the hardest barriers for me is actually knowing what to give it to that could be useful. Like I feel stuck. I may have my grown daughter telling me she's not going to have children. I've heard this story multiple times because of climate, and I want to do something, and I can do something large. But until those people dream to a real outcome, maybe I can only give in small numbers. So it's a reciprocal relationship where the doers imagine what's possible, write it down in a business plan, and the donors can now be part of what they're dreaming.
Okay, I'm gonna say something shameless, but it's going somewhere. Okay. So no. I interviewed you for my book. That's the shameless bit, and you said something there which is kind of aligned to this, and I want to highlight it because I think that is really important for people to hear. But this idea of, you said, I asked about fundraising because obviously you have this wealth of experience of fundraising and working with families and philanthropy, and you said this great thing of instead of seeing you on one side of the table and the kind of donor or philanthropist or foundation on the other, you need to find a way to be on the same side of the table looking at the problem. And I just wondered if you might share a bit more about that, and also how.
Can you just imagine as a donor what a privilege it is to be able to have impact through the ideas of others who know how to solve things? When movement leaders, engage their community because they want to breathe clean air and they ask for the kinds of changes that they deserve of their government, and that makes change. But in order for them to do that, they needed resources. And now the donor gets to be part of it. I mean, that's a huge privilege. So starting in a stance of partnership when you are thinking about bringing a donor on, it just seems to me the way that we should invite people to give. And that's that image of being on the same side of the table. We're not pitching. We are inviting you to be part of something that matters. It's an invitation.
Yeah. Does it actually work?
No.
Does it actually? Well, obviously it works because you've literally got 6 billion. But does that? Because in my mind, I'm putting myself into my third sector position, and thinking if I was to go into a meeting to pitch for funding, I'd be so anxious to say to someone, let me give you an opportunity to make some impact here. I'm like, oh, so this is what we do, and this is the business plan, and but it feels like it's almost like a very bold position to take. Do you not feel weird about it, or is it just chill for you?
Well, I guess it's chill. I think it's chill. Yeah. But my favorite, Ben dear, is doing it on behalf of other people, right? I'm never asking for myself, right? We don't fundraise for ourselves, right? We are this incredible, we were dreamt up by the experienced climate funders who were super lonely because there was so little money coming into this space, and we are free to help bring in new donors, which is really amazing. And so it's pretty chill to be able to ask this on behalf of other people. But I do think embodying a place of everybody in the whole wide world should be doing their part for this cause. You guys are doing what, you're preparing people who go out and try and tell their story with your book and with your coaching. Both of you are telling stories on Climate Curious. Every one of us needs to figure out, and this is a room where everybody is already probably doing that. It's London Climate Week, but every one of us needs to bring the skills and talents and resources and money that we have, because it's that big, and unless we come together, we can't build it. So yeah, I'm chill.
Thanks for listening to this quickie.
This episode was created by our superstar podcast team at TEDxLondon. Until next time,
stay curious.